Hi guys and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to discuss and review this book, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is one of those books that blew up on TikTok, so BookTok, and this one is the first one in the series. So let's get into it. When 19-year-old huntress Feyre kills a wolf in the woods, a terrifying creature arrives to demand retribution. Dragged to a treacherous magical land she knows about only from legends, Feyre discovers that her captor is not truly a beast, but one of the lethal immortal fairies who once ruled her world. At least he's not a beast all the time. As she adapts to her new home, her feelings for the fairy, Tamlin, transform from icy hostility into a fiery passion that burns through every lie she's been told about the beautiful, dangerous world of the Fae. But something is not right in the fairy lands. An ancient wicked shadow is growing, and Feyre must find a way to stop it or doom Tamlin and his world forever. From best-selling author Sarah J. Maas comes a seductive, breathtaking book that blends romance, adventure, and fairy lore into an unforgettable read. Now that is the text that it says here on the inside of the book. And on the last page, where we see a picture of Sarah J. Maas, it also says Sarah J. Maas is the #1 New York Times and internationally best-selling author of The Court of Thorns and Roses, Crescent City, and Throne of Glass series. Her books have sold millions of copies and are published in 38 languages. Sarah lives with her family in New York City. Before I start talking about the summary, I just want to mention that apparently this book is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, which I had no idea that it was, and honestly it makes zero sense at all. Nowhere in this book did I draw the conclusion that it was Beauty and the Beast, so that was just super weird. But anyways, if you want to skip the spoilers, use the chapters for this video down below to skip ahead. So in case you haven't read this book and never intend to, or you have but you need to be reminded, here's the story in depth, full spoilers ahead. So in chapter 1, Feyre Archeron, I don't know, a 19-year-old huntress ventures deep into the frozen forest to find food for her impoverished family. Her father, a former merchant, is crippled and unable to provide, while her sisters Elaine and Nesta don't contribute. As Feyre tracks a deer, she notices a massive wolf nearby, larger than any ordinary animal. Suspecting it might be a fairy in disguise, she shoots it with an ash arrow, which is a rare weapon believed to harm fairies. The wolf does not fight back and dies quickly, which unsettles her. Still, she skins it, hoping to sell the pelt for much needed money. Carrying both the deer carcass and the wolf pelt, Feyre trudges home through the bitter cold, reflecting on how their once wealthy family fell into poverty after her father's failed investments. Their mother died years ago, and on her deathbed she made Feyre promise to take care of the family. As Feyre nears her home, she considers the dangers of the fairy realm beyond the wall, the terrifying stories of fairies attacking humans. Despite this, she does not regret killing the wolf, believing she has saved her family from starvation. Chapter 2. Back home, Feyre's arrival with fresh meat does little to inspire gratitude. Her father, still lost in his despair, offers only mild praise, while Elaine and Nesta immediately argue over who should receive new clothing from the profits of the wolf pelt. Despite her exhaustion and hunger, Feyre is still expected to clean and butcher the deer herself. She reflects on how her family's apathy has hardened her, turning her into their reluctant protector. While eating their meal that night, Feyre contemplates her future and whether her sisters might marry and secure better lives for themselves. However, she knows that they have nothing to offer as dowries. A heated argument erupts when Nesta reveals she intends to marry Thomas Mandray, the son of a poor woodcutter. Feyre warns her that Thomas is not a worthy match, pointing out that his family is nearly as impoverished as theirs. Nesta, insulted, lashes out, calling Feyre an ignorant peasant and accusing her of jealousy over her own lack of romantic prospects. Their father offers little help, merely telling Feyre that hope is essential for survival. Feyre, however, remains deeply skeptical, believing that relying on hope alone will not put food on their table. In chapter 3, the next morning, Feyre travels to the village market to sell the wolf pelt and deer hide, with Nesta and Elaine trailing behind her, hoping to benefit from the profits. On the way, they encounter a group known as the Children of the Blessed, fanatics who worship fairies and believe that being chosen by them is a great honor. Nesta scorns them openly, calling them fools for their misguided beliefs. At the market, Feyre finds 3 potential buyers for her goods, 2 regular traders and a mysterious mercenary woman. Sensing an opportunity, she approaches the mercenary, who inspects the pelts and offers a surprisingly high price. When Feyre questions her generosity, the woman explains that she was once helped in a time of need and is simply repaying the kindness. Before parting, she warns Feyre to stay away from the wall, separating the mortal and fairy realms, as there have been increasing reports of fairies crossing into human lands. Feyre, now alarmed, wonders whether these incursions signal an impending fairy attack. Later, as she prepares to leave, Feyre notices her occasional lover, Isaac Hale. Their relationship is devoid of love, merely a temporary escape from the harshness of their lives. Before heading off to meet him, Feyre gives Elaine some of her earnings, knowing she will likely squander them on frivolities. That night, she watches her sisters whispering together and contemplates their future, wondering if she will ever find her own happiness. So in chapter 4, Feyre's quiet evening is shattered when a monstrous fairy beast bursts into their cottage, roaring with rage. The creature is massive, with golden fur, wolf-like features, and curling elk-like horns. It demands retribution for the life of the fairy she killed, revealing that the wolf she had slain in the woods was no ordinary animal. The creature invokes an ancient treaty, which requires that a human life be taken in exchange for a fairy's death. Terrified, Feyre instinctively reaches for her knife, but the fairy is too fast and powerful for her to stand a chance. Her father, usually passive, surprises her by pleading for Feyre's life. Nesta and Elaine cower in fear, unable to do anything to help. The beast, however, offers an alternative. Rather than being killed, Feyre can choose to cross the wall and live in the fairy lands for the rest of her life. Feyre is stunned, knowing the fairy lands are filled with unimaginable dangers. She tries to bargain to find another way out, but the beast refuses, telling her that a life must be given to Prythian one way or another. Her father urges her to go, making a vague promise that he will take care of her sisters. Realizing she has no real choice, Feyre agrees, her heart filled with dread. Chapter 5, Feyre says a final bitter farewell to her family, warning them to take care of themselves in her absence. As the beast leads her away from the only home she has ever known, she reflects on the cruelty of her fate. She has spent years sacrificing for her family, and now she's forced to leave them behind. Though she doubts her father's ability to care for Nesta and Elaine, she clings to a sliver of hope that they will survive without her. The journey is grueling. The beast moves swiftly through the snow, forcing Feyre to struggle to keep up. Eventually, she is allowed to ride on his back, though the experience is unsettling. As they cross the border into Prythian, Feyre is filled with fear, knowing she is venturing into a land where mortals are nothing more than prey. She considers trying to escape, but with no weapons and no knowledge of the land, she realizes her chances of survival are slim. As they approach the fairy's home, Feyre is overwhelmed by its beauty, an enormous golden-lit manor surrounded by endless gardens and rolling hills. It is a stark contrast to the harsh world she has known. Despite its grandeur, she knows she is a prisoner here. The beasts inform her that this will be her new home, but offers little reassurance about what awaits her inside. So in chapter 6, Feyre arrives at the grand estate in Prythian, where she is struck by its beauty. She soon learns that the beast who took her in is actually Tamlin, a high fae and ruler of the Spring Court. His court is cursed, and all its members wear masks that they cannot remove. Feyre is wary of Tamlin and his companion Lucienne, who treat her politely but keep their distance. Despite being given freedom within the estate, Feyre remains suspicious, determined to escape. However, Tamlin assures her that she is free to live comfortably, though she can never return to the human world. He even provides for her family, ensuring they are well cared for in her absence. But Feyre, unwilling to trust him, remains defensive. That night she is visited by Alice, which is a fairy servant who helps her settle in. Despite the warmth of her surroundings, Feyre struggles to accept her captivity. In Chapter 7, Feyre explores the estate, amazed by its endless gardens and grand halls. She carefully studies her surroundings, hoping to find an escape route. When she meets Lucienne, he is sarcastic and openly hostile, viewing her as an ungrateful human. However, she sees an opportunity. If she can befriend him, he might help her return home. Over a tense meal, Feyre questions Tamlin about his abilities, the curse, and the fairy realm. He remains evasive, but warns her to stay away from dangerous parts of his lands. The conversation unsettles Feyre, as she senses there is far more going on than she understands. That night, she struggles to sleep, haunted by the idea that she is trapped in Prythian forever. Determined to take matters into her own hands, she starts planning her next move. Though she knows she is at a significant disadvantage in a world ruled by fairies. Chapter 8. Determined to escape, Feyre continues her observations, noting hidden passageways and potential weapons. She spends more time with Lucienne, enduring his teasing and cutting remarks. Their banter is tense, but she sees a flicker of amusement in him, realizing he might not truly hate her. Tamlin, meanwhile, remains distant yet oddly kind, offering her paint when he learns her love for art. Feyre is both suspicious and confused by his generosity. One day, while wandering the estate, she comes across a strange fairy creature in the garden. It is invisible, yet she can sense its presence. Before she can react, Tamlin appears and kills the creature, revealing it was a threat to them both. He warns her to always be careful, as Prythian is full of dangerous beings. Though she still longs to escape, she begins to realize that the fairy realm is far more dangerous than she imagined. Chapter 9. Lucienne invites Feyre to join him on a hunting trip, seeing it as an opportunity to test her skills. She accepts, hoping to earn his favor. As they travel, he tells her more about Prythian, hinting at the blight affecting fairy magic. He remains tight-lipped about the details, but Feyre gathers that the curse is weakening Tamlin's power. During the hunt, Lucienne deliberately lets a terrifying creature called a bog approach them. He watches as Feyre attempts to fight it, only stepping in when she's about to be killed. He then scolds her for not listening to warnings about the dangers of the land. Though humiliated, Feyre begins to understand that the fairy world is not just a place of beauty. It is filled with monstrous creatures beyond anything she has ever encountered. That night, she starts to question whether escaping into the unknown would be more dangerous than staying. Chapter 10. Feyre is shaken from her encounter with the bog and begins to see Tamlin in a new light. He is not merely a captor, but a protector of his lands, fighting against an unseen force that threatens Prythian. She also notices that he treats his people with care, unlike the cruel fairies that she had imagined. He surprises her with a secret glade, alive with the ethereal glow of will-o'-the-wisps. The sight is magical, unlike anything Feyre has ever seen. For the first time, she feels a sense of wonder rather than fear. Tamlin explains that despite the dangers in Prythian, it is a land worth saving. Feyre's hatred of fairies begins to waver as she witnesses the beauty of their world. However, she remains cautious, unwilling to let her guard down completely. She knows that whatever is happening in Prythian is far bigger than she understands. Chapter 11. Feyre continues to observe Tamlin and Lucienne, trying to piece together the mystery of the blight that weakens their magic. She eavesdrops on a conversation where Lucienne warns Tamlin that time is running out, though she does not understand what they mean. Later, Tamlin speaks to her directly, revealing that the blight is spreading, affecting all of Prythian. He warns her again to stay within the estate, emphasizing that he is keeping her safe. That night, Feyre sets a makeshift tripwire in her room, still not trusting Tamlin. However, he finds it and confronts her. Instead of punishing her, he is amused by her defiance. For the first time, she sees a softer side to him. She is unsettled by her shifting emotions. Tamlin is supposed to be her enemy, but he does not act like one. She starts to wonder if her hatred of fairies has been misplaced. Chapter 12. While exploring the estate, Feyre stumbles upon a library filled with books, something she never had access to in her old life. Tamlin finds her there and, rather than reprimanding her, offers to teach her how to read. Embarrassed, she refuses, but she cannot ignore the kindness he continues to show her. Later, Tamlin takes her on a ride through the lands, showing her more of Prythian's beauty. They come across a group of fairies suffering from the Blight's effects. Tamlin heals one of them, though he appears exhausted afterwards. Feyre is shocked to see him caring for others, another contrast to the monstrous fairies she had always feared. She begins to feel conflicted. She still wants to escape, but she also sees that Tamlin is not the cruel captor she believed him to be. So that night she finds herself thinking of him in a way she never expected. Chapter 21. Feyre continues to grow closer to Tamlin, who takes her on a romantic outing through the estate. She begins to feel more at home, her initial hatred for fairies softening. Tamlin's charm and kindness confuse her, making her question her old prejudice. However, their peaceful moment is interrupted when they come across a dying fairy brutally attacked by an unknown enemy. The fairy's wings have been ripped off and he dies in Feyre's arms, despite Tamlin's efforts to save him. The incident horrifies Feyre, reinforcing that danger is lurking in Prythian. Tamlin, though visibly shaken, does not explain who might be responsible for the attack. Feyre realizes that the threats to the Spring Court are growing, and that Tamlin is hiding the full extent of the danger from her. This encounter leaves her deeply unsettled, and she starts to sense that her time in Prythian may not be as safe as she thought. Chapter 22. As Tamlin continues to shower Feyre with kindness, she becomes increasingly conflicted about her feelings towards him. He shows her more of the estate's beauty, but she cannot forget the fairy who died in her arms. One evening, she joins Tamlin and Lucienne for a celebration in the Spring Court. As they drink and enjoy the music, Tamlin relaxes around Feyre, making her feel more comfortable. However, the light-hearted mood does not last long. Feyre senses that there is tension beneath the surface of the court, particularly regarding the blight affecting Prythian. Lucienne, despite his usual sarcastic attitude, warns her that Tamlin is trying to protect her from forces she cannot yet understand. Feyre, unwilling to remain ignorant, demands more answers about the dangers threatening Prythian. Though Tamlin remains vague, she realizes that her presence in the fairy realm may be far more significant than she initially thought. Chapter 23. Feyre and Tamlin grow even closer and their flirtation becomes undeniable. One afternoon, Tamlin takes Feyre to a beautiful starlit glade, where the air is filled with glowing lights, a magical sight she never could have imagined in her human world. Overwhelmed by the beauty, Feyre begins to let go of her fears. She and Tamlin share a tender moment, and he confesses that he wishes he could do more for his people. His words hint at a burden he carries, but Feyre does not yet understand the full scope of it. As their evening continues, Feyre's walls begin to crumble, and she allows herself to enjoy the moment with Tamlin. However, the looming threat of the blight and her lingering doubts about the fairy world keep her from fully trusting him. She wonders whether falling for Tamlin is a mistake or if she has truly misjudged fairies all her life. Chapter 24. Feyre stumbles upon a shocking sight. Tamlin and Lucienne discussing an urgent matter involving an unknown woman. She overhears enough to sense that something is seriously wrong, but when she confronts Tamlin, he brushes off her concerns. Frustrated, Feyre feels like an outsider in a world where everyone is keeping secrets from her. Later that day, Tamlin takes Feyre to the fields to train her combat skills, wanting to prepare her for potential danger. Though hesitant at first, she agrees, realizing that she needs to be able to defend herself. As they spar, Tamlin grows impressed with her natural instincts, and their attraction deepens. That evening, their playful teasing turns into a passionate moment, but Feyre is still hesitant to fully give in to her feelings. The mystery of the blight, the danger in Prythian, and her lack of knowledge about Tamlin's world keep her from fully trusting what she feels. Chapter 25. The summer solstice arrives and the spring court celebrates with music, dancing and drinking. Feyre is enchanted by the joy of the fairies, but she remains cautious. Tamlin, however, is completely at ease, and he encourages Feyre to relax and enjoy the night. As the festival continues, Tamlin drinks fairy wine and grows more flirtatious, openly showing his interest in Feyre. Though hesitant, she finally allows herself to be swept up in the moment, and they share an intimate dance, and for the first time, Feyre feels as if she truly belongs in Prythian. However, as the night progresses, she notices a shadow lurking on the edge of the celebration. A sense of unease washes over her, reminding her that danger is never far away. Even as she enjoys her time with Tamlin, Feyre cannot ignore the feeling that something dark is approaching, threatening to shatter the fragile happiness she has found. Chapter 26. Tamlin and Feyre's relationship reaches a turning point. The morning after the solstice, Tamlin opens up to Feyre about his past, revealing glimpses of the struggles he has endured as a High Lord. Their conversation is intimate, deepening the connection between them. However, their peaceful moment is soon interrupted by news that another fairy has been brutally murdered. Feyre begins to realize that the blight affecting Prythian is growing stronger, and even Tamlin might not be able to stop it. Despite this, Tamlin refuses to give her more details, leaving Feyre frustrated and worried. She senses that he is hiding something important from her, but he insists that he is just trying to protect her. Torn between her growing love for Tamlin and her desire for answers, Feyre struggles to decide where she truly belongs. Though she feels safe with Tamlin, she cannot ignore the darkness creeping ever closer to the spring court. Chapter 27. A new threat emerges when a dark, malevolent force begins to creep closer to the spring court. Tamlin, growing increasingly worried, begins preparing for something Feyre does not understand. She notices that the normally confident and powerful High Lord seems tense, as if waiting for something inevitable. Meanwhile, Feyre and Tamlin share more stolen moments together, their romance continuing to deepen. One evening, as they sit together, Tamlin gives her a small, thoughtful gift, a sign that his feelings for her are genuine. Overwhelmed, Feyre finally allows herself to admit that she cares for him too. However, before she can fully embrace her happiness, she overhears a chilling conversation between Tamlin and Lucienne. The words they speak hint at an even greater danger than she imagined. Something that could threaten not only Prythian but the entire world. Fear begins to take root in Feyre's heart even as her love for Tamlin grows stronger. Chapter 28. Tamlin continues acting strangely, growing more distant and tense. Feyre senses he is preparing for something, but he refuses to tell her what. Their final moments together are filled with tenderness and unspoken emotions. That night, Tamlin has a moment with Feyre and marks her with his scent as a sign of possession and protection. He tells her that he loves her, but there is a desperate edge to his words. The next morning, Feyre awakens to find Tamlin in an uncharacteristically somber mood. He tells her that she must leave Prythian immediately for her own safety. Though Feyre protests, he is firm, insisting that it is the only way to keep her safe from the looming threat. Heartbroken and confused, she's sent away with enchanted protection to ensure her family's safety. As she is forced to return to her former home, Feyre is left devastated, believing she may never see Tamlin ever again. Chapter 29. Feyre arrives back at her family's lavish new estate gifted by Tamlin. Her sisters, Elaine and Nesta, have been thriving in luxury, oblivious to the true reason for their fortune. They believe Feyre has been caring for a sick aunt all the time. However, Nesta is suspicious and seems to sense that something is not right. Despite the comforts of her new home, Feyre feels empty and restless. She realizes that she no longer belongs in the human world and yearns for Prythian and Tamlin. While her father and Elaine are overjoyed at her return, Nesta notices her sister's distant behavior and calls her out on it. Eventually, Nesta reveals that she never believed Feyre's story about the aunt and had even tried to find her, proving she's more protective of Feyre than she appears. Feyre begins to consider whether she made a terrible mistake in leaving Tamlin. Chapter 30. Still unsettled, Feyre spends time wandering her family's new estate, Trying to adjust to her old life, she reflects on how her priorities have shifted. Once desperate to escape poverty, she now longs for the wild beauty of Prythian. She also realizes that she feels utterly alone despite being surrounded by her family. Seeking solace, she attempts to reconnect with Isaac Hale, her former lover, but finds that he has married and moved on. The encounter only reinforces how much she has changed. Meanwhile, Feyre secretly begins making preparations to return to Prythian. She uses the wealth Tamlin left for her family to secure their future, ensuring they will be well cared for in her absence. As she does so, she becomes more convinced that Tamlin is in danger. The nagging feeling that something terrible has happened to him becomes impossible to ignore, and she decides that she must go back. Chapter 31. Determined to return to Tamlin, Feyre seeks information about the hidden passageways in the magical wall separating the human and fairy worlds. To her surprise, Nesta offers to help. Despite her usual cold demeanor, Nesta confesses that she never trusted Tamlin's story and had attempted to rescue Feyre, only to be magically turned away. This revelation shocks Feyre, who realizes that Nesta has always cared for her, more than she admitted. With her sister's help, Feyre prepares for her journey back to Prythian. She sets off alone, using the information Nesta gathered about the wall's weaknesses to find her way back. The journey is treacherous, and she must navigate dangerous forests filled with fairy creatures. As she crosses the border, she braces herself for what she might find, knowing that she may be walking straight into danger. Her only thought is reaching Tamlin before it is too late. Chapter 32. Feyre arrives at the Spring Court only to find it is in ruins. The once grand manor is abandoned, its gates bent and shattered. The inside of the house is in complete disarray. Broken furniture, bloodstains, and eerie silence fill the halls. The destruction makes it clear that a battle has taken place. Panic sets in as Feyre calls out for Tamlin and Lucienne, but there is no response. It becomes evident that the entire court has been taken, but by whom and for what purpose remains unclear. She finds signs of a struggle, and although there are no bodies, the bloodstains suggest that people were injured or killed. Overwhelmed with fear and despair, Feyre realizes that whatever took Tamlin and his court is something far worse than she imagined. She sinks to the floor alone in the wreckage and understands that she has no choice but to seek out answers on her own. Chapter 33. Feyre gathers supplies from the wreckage of the Spring Court and sets out to find answers. She remembers what the Suriel told her, to stay with the High Lord, and feels guilt for leaving Tamlin when he needed her the most. While searching for clues, she encounters Alice, her former maid, who warns her that Tamlin has been taken under the mountain by Amarantha, the ruler of Prythian's dark forces. Amarantha is the source of the blight, the curse, and all the suffering in Prythian. She had tricked Tamlin and now holds him captive. Alice reveals that Tamlin's power had been diminishing over time because of the curse, making it impossible for him to fight back. Feyre demands to know how to reach under the mountain, but Alice warns her that no human has ever gone there and survived. Despite this, Feyre insists on going, willing to risk everything to save Tamlin. Chapter 34. Ignoring Alice's warnings, Feyre begins her dangerous journey to Under the Mountain, the dark lair of Amarantha. She arms herself as best she can, knowing that she is walking into a trap, but feeling she has no other choice. When she arrives, she finds a massive underground palace filled with wicked, powerful fae. The air is thick with magic, and every corridor is lined with twisted beauty and danger. She sneaks through the stronghold searching for Tamlin, but is quickly discovered and captured. Brought before Amarantha, she is shocked to see Tamlin seated beside the fairy queen, wearing an emotionless mask. Amarantha taunts Feyre, revealing that she has complete control over him. When Feyre demands Tamlin's release, Amarantha offers her a bargain. She can win his freedom, but only if she survives 3 deadly trials or solves a riddle. Feyre, realizing she has no choice, agrees to the challenge. Chapter 35. Feyre is thrown into a dungeon beneath Under the Mountain, where she will await her trials. The cold, damp prison fills her with terror, but she steels herself for what is to come. Meanwhile, Amarantha enjoys toying with her, treating her like a foolish mortal who stands no chance. As Feyre tries to keep herself from falling into despair, she receives an unexpected visitor, Rysand, the High Lord of the Night Court. He offers cryptic words mocking her, yet showing an unsettling amount of interest in her survival. Though he does not offer direct help, his presence makes it clear that he has his own motives. Alone in her cell, Feyre begins to plan, knowing that she must fight not only for Tamlin but for herself. With no idea what horrors awaits her, she resolves to survive Amarantha's trials, no matter the cost. Chapter 36. Feyre faces her first trial in Amarantha's court. She is thrown into a massive underground arena where she must fight a deadly fairy creature, a giant blind worm called the Midgard worm. The monstrous beast uses its heightened sense of smell to hunt her, forcing Feyre to think quickly. With no weapons strong enough to kill it, she uses her intelligence to outmaneuver the creature. She digs a series of sharpened wooden stakes into the ground, setting a trap. The plan works. The worm impales itself and dies. The victory, however, comes at a price. Feyre sustains severe injuries, including a deep wound in her arm. Despite the pain, she emerges triumphant, earning the respect of the Fae court. Amarantha, though displeased, allows her to continue to the next challenge. Lucienne secretly ensures that her wounds are treated, but Feyre is left shaken, knowing that worse trials lie ahead. Chapter 37. Feyre's injuries from the first trial leave her in agony. She receives no proper medical care and is left to suffer in her prison cell. As she lies on the cold floor, delirious with fever, Rysand, the enigmatic High Lord of the Night Court, visits her. Instead of helping her out of kindness, he offers her a bargain. He will heal her, but in exchange, she must spend 1 week per month in his court. Desperate and close to death, Feyre agrees. Rysand seals the bargain with magic, leaving a dark tattoo on her arm as proof of their deal. Once healed, Feyre is furious at herself for accepting his terms, but she knows she had no choice. Rysand, amused by her frustration, leaves her to recover. As Feyre regains her strength, she realizes that Amarantha's trials will only become more difficult, and she is still far from winning Tamlin's freedom. Chapter 38. Feyre is forced into labor by Amarantha's guards, given an impossible task: scrubbing an entire floor with filthy water that only makes the marble dirtier. She quickly realizes that it is a cruel, unwinnable punishment meant to humiliate her. As she struggles, Lucien's mother, the Lady of the Autumn Court, secretly provides her with clean water, allowing her to complete the task. Later, Rysand appears again, mocking her situation. He hints that he has his own agenda against Amarantha and suggests that he may be willing to help her, though at a cost. Feyre begins to suspect that Rysand's interest in her is more than just amusement. She also notices that Tamlin remains passive, unwilling or unable to intervene. As she prepares for the second trial, Feyre begins to feel increasingly isolated, realizing she must rely on herself to survive the horrors of Amarantha's court. Chapter 39. As Feyre awaits her second trial, Rysand makes another unexpected move. He forces her to drink a special fairy wine that erases her inhibitions, making her more compliant. Under its influence, she is paraded in front of Amarantha's court and made to dance for their entertainment. Though she is aware of what is happening, she is powerless to resist. Rysand uses this opportunity to mark her as his, painting swirling designs on her body to claim her in front of everyone. Feyre is humiliated but realizes that Rysand may be keeping her under his protection to prevent Amarantha from tormenting her further. Despite her hatred for him, she begins to understand that his actions may have a hidden purpose. After the night's humiliation, she is thrown back into her cell, exhausted and humiliated. With the next trial looming, she struggles to maintain her determination to survive. Chapter 40. Feyre's second trial is even more brutal than the first. She is thrown into an underground chamber where Lucienne is chained to the floor. Before her, a massive wall of spiked machinery begins to descend. She is given a choice: solve a puzzle to stop the mechanism, or watch Lucienne be crushed to death. The challenge seems simple. 3 levers, one of which will stop the trap, while the others will bring instant death. The problem is, Feyre cannot read, a secret she has kept hidden. As the spikes lower, she is forced to guess. Desperation and instinct drive her decision, and by sheer luck, she chooses correctly, saving Lucienne at the last moment. Though she survives the trial, she is left shaken by the realization that she will not always be able to rely on luck. Meanwhile, Amarantha grows angrier, sensing that Feyre may be more of a threat than she anticipated. Chapter 41. After surviving her second trial, Feyre is taken back to her cell, exhausted and emotionally drained. However, the court's attention is still on her. Amarantha's cruelty continues as she subjects Feyre to further torment. Rysand unexpectedly steps in once more, asserting his claim over her. To the shock of everyone, he announces that Feyre belongs to him for a week each month as part of their bargain. Amarantha, amused by this development, allows Rysand to take Feyre under his protection. That evening, he visits her, taunting her, but also providing her with much-needed food and rest. Feyre begins to suspect that Rysand has a hidden agenda, though she cannot yet understand his motives. As she prepares for the final trial, she realizes that she is running out of time. If she cannot find a way to defeat Amarantha, soon she may never see Tamlin or her freedom ever again. Chapter 42. The night before Feyre's final trial, Amarantha holds another court gathering. Feyre, forced to attend under Rysand's command, drinks the fairy wine again and dances for the court's amusement. Though humiliated, she has grown accustomed to this routine. However, something unexpected happened. Tamlin, despite his usual coldness under Amarantha's watch, suddenly reaches for her hand. Their fingers barely brush, but it is enough to reignite Feyre's determination. Knowing she has little time left, she follows Tamlin into a hidden corridor, where they share a desperate moment together. Their reunion is brief and filled with tension, as Tamlin warns her to be careful. Before they can say more, Rysand intervenes and takes Feyre back to his side, reminding her that she is still under his protection. Feyre, now more determined than ever, prepares herself mentally for the final trial, knowing that failure means losing Tamlin and her own life. Chapter 43. Feyre is brought before Amarantha for the final trial, the most gruesome and horrifying of them all. To win Tamlin's freedom, she must kill 3 fairies using an ash dagger. The first 2 fairies are innocent, sobbing and pleading for their lives. Feyre is devastated but forces herself to complete the task, knowing she has no choice. However, when she reaches the 3rd victim, she realizes with horror that it is Tamlin himself. Amarantha, enjoying her cruelty, forces her into an impossible situation: kill the one she loves or give up everything. As Feyre hesitates, Amarantha taunts her, relishing her agony. Feyre desperately searches for a way out, but she remembers that Suriel's advice to stay with the High Lord. Realizing Tamlin is the key, she takes the ultimate risk. She confesses her love for him and plunges the dagger into his chest, believing in something greater than logic. Chapter 44. Tamlin's body reacts immediately to the dagger wound, but instead of dying, his magic flares. The curse Amarantha placed on him begins to break. The masks worn by Tamlin's court shatter, revealing their true faces. The fairies in the audience gasp as the realization sets in. Feyre has completed the final trial and fulfilled the necessary conditions to free Tamlin. However, Amarantha refuses to honor her deal. Enraged by Feyre's defiance and her unexpected victory, Amarantha unleashes her full wrath. Using dark magic, she tortures Feyre, breaking her bones and causing unimaginable pain. Feyre, too weak to fight back, is on the brink of death. Tamlin, still regaining his strength, can do nothing but watch as Amarantha continues to punish her. As Feyre's vision fades and she drifts towards unconsciousness, she realizes that she might die before she ever gets to experience the freedom she fought so hard for. Chapter 45. Feyre's body is shattered, but she refuses to give up. As Amarantha continues to torture her, Tamlin finally regains his power. Fueled by rage, he transformed into his beast form and attacks Amarantha. The Fae Court erupts into chaos as Tamlin unleashes all the magic he had been forced to suppress for so long. Rysand also makes his move, subtly assisting Tamlin by weakening Amarantha's defenses. Meanwhile, Feyre, lying broken on the ground, realizes the answer to Amarantha's riddle. The answer is love. With her last ounce of strength, she speaks the word aloud. The magic of the riddle takes effect, breaking the final chain of Amarantha's power. Weakened, Amarantha is no longer invincible. Tamlin seizes the moment and kills her, ending her reign of terror. As she dies, the entire court watches in stunned silence. The curse on Prythian is lifted, but Feyre is slipping away, barely clinging to life. Chapter 46, the final chapter. Feyre's body goes completely still, and for a moment it seems as though she has died. However, the High Lords of Prythian, recognizing her sacrifice, decides to intervene. One by one, they each bestow a piece of their magic upon her. Their combined power restores Feyre's broken body, but with an unexpected consequence. When she awakens, she realizes that she is no longer human. She has been transformed into a High Fae. Overwhelmed by the changes in her body, Feyre struggles to process what has happened. Tamlin, now fully himself again, rushes to her side, relieved beyond words. The court celebrates their freedom, but Feyre feels a lingering sense of unease. She knows that while Amarantha is dead, darker forces may still be at play. As she steps into her new immortal life, she realizes that everything has changed, and that her journey in Prythian is far from over. And that's how the book ends. Now let's read some reviews, both good and bad, but let's start with the positive ones. Wow, just wow, Sarah has done it again. This book was amazing. The romance was borderline new adult, which I loved, but it was also greatly paced. The plot was so well thought out and executed as well. I highly recommend A Court of Thorns and Roses. And the second review, this is definitely one of my favorite books of 2015. So, 10 years ago, they wrote this review. Damn. I am a huge Beauty and the Beast fan and was in the mood for fantasy, so those combined and written by one of my favorite authors was perfection. I definitely recommend this book to everyone and can't wait for the next installment. And the third good review, Astrophysal. I love this book. It took me a little bit to get into just because there's a good amount of world building that has to happen at the beginning, but then I flew through the second half. I love the world, the politics, the romance, and all the characters. The ending had me on the edge of my seat, and I've now immediately gone out and purchased the second book. And now let's read some of the bad reviews. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This also happens to be my first experience of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it left me disappointed. I believe that Beauty and the Beast shows that love is not superficial. Love is being attached to and caring for somebody, not in spite of their flaws, but with and for their flaws. ACOTAR failed to show that. Feyre didn't seem to care one bit about Tamlin's personality. All she cared about was what he looked like underneath his mask. She was pining to look at his high cheekbones and arched eyebrows the whole time, which fails to portray the essence of Beauty and the Beast. And I definitely agree with this review because she mentioned multiple times about how gorgeous and how stunning Tamlin was. A lot of other things also didn't line up with Beauty and the Beast. Number 1, Tamlin. Tamlin was a beauty to behold regardless of his mask. He was like most male leads, nothing beastly about him apart from the fact that he essayed Feyre, and this should not have made Feyre fall in love with him. Nonetheless, Tamlin was not a beast with a good heart. Number 2, Feyre. She had a talent, but unlike Belle, she didn't seem very passionate about it. She was happy with being held captive. In contrast to Belle, who was smart, she was stupid. Number 3, Amarantha. I'm 100% sure that there was no evil empress in Beauty and the Beast. Number 4, Rysand. I don't happen to remember a purple-eyed being there in Beauty and the Beast either. Also, he's not somebody people should be crushing on. He's not a good person, and I won't wish a person like him even on my worst enemy. Now, I can't read the full review, but if you want to, it's on screen right now. But let's continue. Plot, what's that? There's no plot here. There's just a bunch of hotties pining for each other and being melodramatic about it. The villainess wants Feyre's love, and the villainess' right hand wants Feyre. Feyre wants Tamlin and Tamlin just wants toxic masculinity. The other minor little things revolve around all that. World building. In ACOTAR, nothing of that sort exists. If by chance it does, it's hidden by the angst that took up most of the space in my brain, which is there for comprehending books. And I really agree with that comment because there was no world building at all. Even if the books had not been advertised as a Beauty and the Beast retelling, it could not have been any better. Now let's read the second bad review. Feed pressure is real. I swear Maas protagonists worry about the most ridiculous thing. See here, Feyre, from the very first day after she got kidnapped, suddenly thought of her captor as a love interest. I'm not kidding you here, because why else would she keep wondering if he actually remembered her name? Or that when she helped him patch up his injury, that he didn't say goodbye when she left the room after. Like, what the heck, girl? I just could not get myself into this. I feel like singing out too long, too long, too long. The book was repetitive and long-winded with so much unnecessary information. I just sigh. And this last review is too long to read, so I'm not going to read all of it, but it's on screen right now if you want to read the entirety of it. But here we go. Never shall I ever be influenced into reading a Sarah J. Maas book ever again. This book is 70% boring and 30% just enough crumbs to keep you interested to finish it. And the ending is as weak as my upper body strength. Between Feyre's watery bowels and Sarah J. Maas' unimaginative worm creature as a final boss, it has the most terrible riddle to ever effing riddle. Now, what are my opinions on this book? What did I think? So let's start with my dislikes. So I enjoy this book up until like chapter 10. Once she gets to Tamlin's manor, she stays there for way too long, in my opinion. And if I hadn't switched to the audiobook instead of reading this, like the physical book, I wouldn't have finished the book at all. It got so tedious and boring in the middle. So number one, as I said, Feyre spent way too long in Tamlin's manor and did nothing. The entire book is 46 chapters. But it could have been shortened by like 10 to 15 chapters and still stay the exact same. Number two, the love story between her and Tamlin is not believable, and they don't even seem to like each other. And I so agree with one of the comments that I read in the reviews before, where someone said that it's supposed to be Beauty and the Beast, but he's still attractive. And Feyre talks about him being attractive a lot. I think there's something also with the way that Maas described their interactions, but in the end, when she's writing about Feyre, that she loves Tamlin so much and she's doing this, like all of these trials for his sake, I don't buy it at all. Number three, the description of the monsters. So the Naga, Suriel, Bog, and that worm thing that she fights in the trials are poorly written. I think, at least. I read the book and I still have no idea how a Suriel, a Bog, or any of the monsters look like. It just flew right past me. She describes them each once in the beginning of encountering them and then never again. Number four, Feyre is introduced as a character that hates capitalism or living lavishly, and I remember writing it in my notes that she hates capitalism, but then she completely throws that character trait to the wind and abandons it. Towards the ending of the book, all the characters seem very shallow and very vague. Number five, the story. So, the most important thing in a book, it does not have a solid, interesting, captivating story. Amarantha, which is the blight, I guess, I don't know, on Prythian, is introduced in the ending, and her justification for being evil is that her sister being killed by a human boy and then cursing Tamlin and his court for 7 times 7 years, or 49 years, is just not good, I think, at least. It could have been done very well with the exact same story if she could have just changed the pace, the characters, and, changed everything about the book, basically. Number 6, the riddle. It is the most stupid riddle I have ever heard, and the answer to it being love is just, it's so cliche and it's so dumb. Number 7, bad reasoning for 3 things in particular. So, bad reasoning number 1, Tamlin basically sends out fairies to the human world in hopes one of them dies by the hands of a human, and a female human at that, so that he can make them fall in love with him and break the curse. Bad reasoning number 2, why does Rysand want Feyre to spend time with him every month? And I know you might get an explanation in the next book on why Rysand wants to spend time with Feyre, but I'm not going to read the next book if I thought this one, the first one, sucked. And bad reasoning number 3, how does Feyre become a fairy by the end? It is explained very hastily that the High Lords give her some of their magic and now she's a High Fae. It's bad reasoning. And I know I said I was going to mention bad reasoning for 3 things, but I just came up with a 4th thing, which is one of the things I do not understand at all. Why does Feyre kill the wolf in the beginning that she suspects to be a fairy? Now, Googling this gave me the answer that once Feyre notices him, she suspects him of being a fairy because of his large size. Out of desperation to put food on the table and her hatred for the fairy kind, Feyre kills him with an arrow through his eye and then an ashwood arrow through his heart. I don't think that's a reasonable explanation. So she doesn't need to kill the wolf anyway, because she did kill a deer before killing the wolf. So in the ending of the first chapter in this book, she carries home the deer and the wolf on her back, although she does not need to kill the wolf at all, because you're not going to eat the wolf, right? Now let's move on to my likes. What did I actually like about this book? So number 1, it is written in a casual way. Number 2, it's fun and easily understandable world building, even though there is no world building in this book at all. And that is pretty much it for my likes. So, conclusion and rating. Here is my rating system for books. So a 1 out of 10 is did not finish, horrible, not a single positive thing. A 3 out of 10 is almost didn't finish, but it had maybe 1 to 3 good things about it. A 5 out of 10 being, it was definitely a book. It wasn't hard to finish, but nothing stood out, and it's just completely average. A 7 out of 10 being enjoyed reading it, maybe 1 to 3 bad things about it. A 9 out of 10 being fantastic book, would recommend everyone to read it, had maybe 1 bad thing about it. And finally, a 10 out of 10 being a phenomenal book, no bad things at all, had a hard time putting it down, and I binge read all of it. And I would give this book a 3 out of 10. Since I almost didn't finish it, I can see why people enjoy it, but I think that it's just cliche upon cliche, and it should have been shortened with 10 to 15 chapters, along with some more character development. I did not enjoy reading it at all, and I didn't care for any of the characters or the story or anything about it, to be honest. This review is not meant to be a critique of the author or the rest of the book series. It's merely my opinion on this particular novel. If you read this book and you absolutely loved it, or if you hated it, tell me in the comments down below. I would love to know. Do you have any book recommendations on what I should read and review next? Tell me in the comments. If you're still here at the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. I make new videos every week or every other week, so make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!